And it's very important that we maintain it because at the end of the day, it is the only truly free medium out there. Radio is real time.
It's real time. So the edge is just real time.
It's just real time. I mean, it was well received in some aspects, and some people were just like, "But what is this?
Right.
We want the, bichari
Traditional, the
ladki
bichari
and
woman.
the sar dhaki bhi aurat." I think somebody had to tell him.
Yeah.
Like one or two people came to him and said, "Bhai, your daughters are fantastic,"
Yeah.
and he was like, "What?"
Yeah. These ones.
That one?
Hello and welcome everyone to episode 63 of Digitales. My name is Faizan Sayed, founder and CEO of East River, and today I have with me a very talented owner of a media group. She runs FM91. She's the CEO of FM91. She is also the MD of Airwaves Media. She is a board member of the WWF, a board member of the Citizens Archive, and as well as now PDP. And she's here today to discuss the future of radio and media and technology. Sara Taher, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
So tell me, radio.
Yes.
It's been 20 years. You've been doing this for a while.
Very long time.
Where is radio headed in the next 5 years, in your opinion?
5 years. So, according to the marketers here, it's headed to a very sad death, you might say. But looking at the markets abroad, I don't think radio is disappearing as quick as they imagine it to. Yes, digital will be overtaking it, but radio has always been a free medium for people. It is an easily accessible medium. It is a medium that is across the countries. And I mean, the most important thing is it's free, right? And it's the cheapest medium for anybody to advertise on right now. And it's a supporting medium. So I don't think radio is going anywhere. If you look in the US, which is the leading market, or even in China, they still have radio in its original form. Maybe, yes, it's become digital now, but they still have radio. It's still existing there. It's still used in commutes. It doesn't matter that people have other digital entities, which provide them with musical options. Radio is still there. NPR is still...
That's true. NPR is a very popular channel. It's got a lot of popular content. So why is it that Pakistan media owners or the marketplace has this doom and gloom sort of view on radio?
I think they're hearing from the region, spend more on digital. They're investing more in digital.
Right.
They have their own assets to invest in. And it's also new. I think anytime there's something new that comes into the market, people run towards it. They gravitate. Right. The same thing happened with radio. It's happened with television. It will happen with digital.
Right.
Eventually, it will all balance out. But I don't see radio as being one of the top notch, but I do see it as being a supportive medium. And it's very important that we maintain it because at the end of the day, it is the only truly free medium out there. And it is also the cheapest to advertise on. It is the easiest for anybody, to have interaction with. I mean, if you look at digital mediums, yes, you can hear a podcast. Yes, you can hear music. Yes, you can, listen, but you can't interact.
Right.
In my experience, we've had people who've come and cried at our radio hosts' feet, कि भैया आप नहीं होते तो हम क्या करते? Because they are lonely people and they have someone to talk to. They have someone to,
So when they call into the radio channels and they have that dialogue.
Yes, they have someone to turn to,
Right.
And this isn't just my radio station. I mean, if you hear what the other local Urdu language radio stations are doing, they're providing a lot of information. They're providing a lot of support. I've heard some of the shows on other channels where, they ask the most basic questions. Like a woman calls in and says, कि भाई मेरा बच्चा इस हाल में है, मैं क्या करूँ इसके साथ? And the radio host can provide an answer.
But why? But that can happen on digital as well. Why do you think radio is still the better medium? Because you can do all of those things.
It's not necessary that it's better.
Cheaper or more accessible.
It's cheaper because it is an old
Sure.
technology.
So digital, you'll need data, for example.
Yes.
You'll need a mobile phone.
Yes.
Radio, you need a static, sort of a standard basic
Exactly.
phone, right?
Yes.
And you can just dial in and
Any
have a conversation.
standard phone.
Any standard
Any
phone.
standard
And you
phone.
don't even need data, for
Yes,
example,
you don't
right?
need data for it.
You don't need to be in an area of high signals or whatever.
Yes.
You can actually call in from anywhere.
Yes. That's the beauty.
So
Especially in a third world country.
Especially in a third world country.
Yeah.
So then the question is, should the programming type then be different? Should radio then be creating a different type of content versus digital so it doesn't compete with digital?
Again, all over the world, radio is creating entertainment content.
Right.
It hasn't evolved anywhere else. It's either giving information like NPR, where you invite people and you give information. What radio in Pakistan hasn't done is it hasn't gone digital. So at FM
Right.
91, the first thing we did is we realized that, there's a digital market and we need to be addressing that and we need to be taking things digital. Now, it takes a lot of time and
Right.
effort, and we still haven't, managed to excel in that, but we're trying. Other radio stations need to do that too if they want to survive. The reason we're surviving is because we have, big hosts, personalities. We're digitally forward. We do things digitally. We could do them better, frankly speaking, but budget constraints
Right, of
prevent us
course.
from. And we are constantly active on our social platforms. Other radio stations aren't.
So you mentioned being
Not
active.
all, at least.
Not all are active, right? And I think you guys do a fantastic job with collaborations and partnerships, and you're always present at events and ground activations. And I'll get to that in a second. But what benefit has being present on digital? What benefit has that brought you?
Advertising.
Or it brings you a different stream of advertising?
As well as listenership. So let's say we're only in 3 cities, officially, properly. It gives us access to the rest of Pakistan.
Right.
So we have callers from Sialkot, who love Dino.
Right.
Or we have Sophie's followers, not just in Lahore.
Right.
They follow us on digital. They'll follow us on, streaming. They'll listen. So that really helps.
So why not create a different stream on digital and then target and tap a completely different audience, right?
So we have had our app. We are just reintroducing a new one because we saw some, glitches. And in the last app, we actually had different streams of music for different kind of demographics or different kind of listenership. So
Right.
there was a jazz, there was Urdu, there was this and that, and we had different programming, and we're also doing podcasts. So we're doing a lot of different stuff for different people. Even our show programming, if you look at it, Khalid Malik speaks to the drive time, the children and the executives, English speaking, Urdu medium people. But if you go down to the evening, Dino does a show that's mass oriented, and we want it to be that way because the research suggests that in the evening people, from the masses are more available on their phones. So they'll be more prone to listening in and responding. So a lot of his show is mainly local music, speaking to local celebrities, stars, whereas Khalid Malik's is speaking to a more executive or
Drive to work audience.
Yeah. And in the evening, we just keep it a mix. So Sophie is very Lahori because she is from Lahore.
Right.
Her music can be anywhere between the 80s to Purane Pakistani Gaane, And she's very popular because she's a very bubbly personality. So we've tried to do that. We've tried to segmentize our programming to speak to different people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for the most part, we've had good response.
And how do you see this sort of proliferation of podcasts in Pakistan and sort of the push of Spotify to come into the market? How do you think this will disrupt the radio broadcast, the radio content that you just talked about?
It's already disrupted it pretty. Our advertising ratio has gone down. Spotify has taken a big chunk of it. Spotify also has a lot of money to be able to do different things. They can provide you with streams without advertising. We can't afford to do that.
So Spotify technically can be like radio because it is giving you listenership supported through advertising, which is what radio is doing. But it's not free because you need data to access it.
You need data to access it. If you want the premium, you need to pay for that. You do not have interaction. You can get information across, but it has to be recorded, pre-recorded.
Right.
So Spotify has, the beauty of Spotify is you can get music from anywhere in the world for, anything. And it's amazing. Radio isn't that. Radio is more local. So let's say if you're driving from here to another destination and you're sitting in your car and you have two options. You have listen to local radio, which means local ads, which is a little painful, yes. Or you listen to your Spotify, which means no ads if you're paying premium. The good thing about local is at least you'll get to know कि यहाँ हो क्या रहा है, कोई accident आगे हो गया या traffic है या कोई event हो रहा है. You'll figure that out. You'll hear about that. You might listen to some local music that you haven't heard. It'll give you a little bit of a more current feel. You listen to Spotify and yes, you have seamless music, your choice, but it's a way of zoning out. So you have an option of both, and both provide a service.
So you're saying that radio then is about localized content where active listenership is a big part of the experience.
Absolutely.
Versus Spotify, sure, global content, but it's more passive.
Yes, to a degree, because you can put your Spotify on and you
And
can
then just forget about it.
yeah, you can just and enjoy it. And I'm not saying I'm not for or against Spotify. I think it's a fantastic,
Right.
fantastic software. In fact, Spotify's advertised on FM 91 a few
Right.
times. But they're just two different mediums, and you can't say one is better than the other because they provide two different services.
Interesting.
And it depends. I feel the more the younger lot tends to be, they tend to lean towards Spotify until eventually they're like, "Nee, I want a change." The older lot and the really young kids, they want interactivity. And then
Right.
depends on what area you're in. So yeah, Defense Phase 5, maybe Spotify.
Right.
But if you go out in Nazmabad, they're like, I want some interaction, I want some personality, I want to be able to talk to someone. And not just Nazmabad, I'm saying, buffer line. We've had people call us from there, but they're like,
Right.
यार मैं घर पे अकेला बैठा हूँ, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं है, टीवी नहीं चल रहा है, चलो रेडियो सुनते हैं, रेडियो पर किसी से बात कर लो,
तो ये पॉडकास्ट में नहीं मिलता है that two-way interaction, because podcast की भी personalities are big personalities. They're bringing in other big personalities to have conversations or interview with. You can create that two-way dialogue with that personality. It may not be real time, right? But how does radio have the edge is what I'm trying to understand.
Radio is real time.
It's real time. So the edge is just real time.
It's just real time. I mean, yes, you can do Instagram live and this and that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's fantastic too. And it has definitely affected us.
Right.
But radio is just, I'll tell you something, when I have to invite you to our show, Encounter with Khalid Malik, you'll come and you'll see. It's a lot like this.
Yeah.
Except, you're going live.
You're going live.
People can call you. You can, and we have Instagram. So the thing with radio is that it has to be supported with Instagram, by Instagram. It
so
has
you
to
need
support it
that digital leg in radio.
In this day and
age.
We do.
Interesting.
Yes,
you
mentioned, it supports us.
And you mentioned Khalid Malik. You've also mentioned Sophie. You've had these RJs for a long time.
Yes.
I think Sophie, you mentioned, is over 16 years apparently, right? How do you retain talent? Because this is an industry, overall, media is an industry notorious for people constantly switching, hopping, and finding new places, right? But you've maintained and held on to really, really good talent, great content creators and RJs for a very long time.
All relationships. It's relationship.
So what is it about how do you drive that or build that relationship? What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is you celebrate them when they do well. You don't stop them from doing things, but you kind of lay your boundaries also.
How do you do that? How do you not stop someone yet lay a boundary?
Well, you ask them to let you know what they're doing.
Right.
And whether it cannibalizes your business, and you make it very clear to them that it'll hurt me, which means it hurts you. These are people who really love radio. Okay?
Right.
They love radio. Sophie's career started at FM 91. She came on a whim and said, "Main ye karti hu."
Right.
And, we've been friends for as long as she's been there.
Right.
So it's not just that Sophie's doing this for money. There's no money involved in radio. She's doing this because...
Maybe she should do a podcast now.
So she's doing all kinds of things. She has a whole studio.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In Lahore. So Sophie has been doing this because she has a love for radio.
And she's doing this live every day.
Live,
and so is Khalid doing it live every day.
Khalid is doing it live every day.
Which means 9 a.m. he's in the studio. 7 on the dot. Sorry, drive time, of course.
Drive time, 7 a.m. As of the 9th, he'll be 7 a.m.
So that requires a lot of discipline also on their end.
Absolutely.
You can't go out and have a late night and then show up at 7 a.m.
Yeah, and Dino
functional.
comes at 10. So Dino has to have a lot of discipline. And for him, it's, but they love what they do.
Right.
They love their show.
Right.
And what we've also done for them is we've there's no other radio station where the RJ has been built up. Okay, I think FM 89 has done that, but we were the first ones to start saying it's not just a show.
Yeah.
It's also the host.
The personality
and
matters.
And we built those hosts up. I mean,
Correct.
Sophie became Sophie, RJ Sophie, because we built her.
Right.
We put money behind endorsing her image and projecting her image and, publicizing her image. I explained to her what she needs to do digitally, and she did it like a pro. Khalid Malik also, we help him, we tell him ye karo, wo karo, in the sense that whenever he wants to do something, we're like, yeah, let's work on this together. We've done campaigns with them. I mean, if you remember, I don't know if you remember, when Khalid Malik joined FM 91, we rolled out a very big campaign, which is probably
I
the
do
only
remember.
campaign
Yep.
for a radio host done ever at that
It
level.
was a big deal when he switched over, and you
Yes,
guys really celebrated that switch.
we did. He wasn't switching over. He was moving to Singapore and he was looking for a job there. And when
Okay.
that fell through,
Right.
he came to us because he said, I don't think I can go back to 89. I've done so much, like I've
Right.
cried there and I've left and
Right.
I'm. And
So it was
obviously,
honestly circumstance that brought him over to you.
well, he'd come and had a chat before, and I
Right.
said, dude, while you're working there, we can't,
Right.
So he said, okay, I'm leaving for Singapore anyways. So forget about it. I guess if that doesn't work out, I'll check back.
Right.
So we were like, okay, we had no expectations. When he came back, it took him a while, but he came to us and he was like, guys, it's taken me a month or two, but I want to explore what you have to offer.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, Khalid, obviously we're interested.
Right.
But are you sure you're not going back? And he was like, no, I think, my time with them is up and I want to explore this option. So we're like, okay. And that was it. So he
Wow.
came, he told us what he wanted. We delivered on that. I think we did. One of the reasons for retaining him or pulling him in was because we did that campaign where we had Interflow, come and create a campaign.
The benefit of having your own advertising agency.
It does help. But I was very involved. But it does
Yeah.
help to have an advertising agency attached. So we did an on ground and we launched our app with him. We did a Bieber competition where people won tickets. If you went into certain restaurants like Xander's
Yeah.
and Muse, you had, like these, you had like, what's it called? Placemats and
Right.
stuff with his branding on it. And
Cup
first,
holders. Sorry.
cup,
Yeah.
like the
Yes,
glass.
I know exactly
things,
what
yeah.
you're talking about. It slips my mind too.
So initially,
Coaster.
coasters, exactly.
Yes.
So initially, the first one was that there was a question like, "What makes
Yeah.
your morning great?" And then we had the
And it was very
Malik.
colorful branding, I remember.
It was colorful branding. We also had an event at Muse where we invited all our,
Right.
all our clients and friends of Khalid, and he cooked eggs for everybody because it was about the morning jam.
Yeah.
We sent out jam baskets.
So he was really celebrated and brought on, and that must have made him excited. But you've maintained his excitement with his content, because what happens is oftentimes, you'll bring in talent in a company and there'll be a lot of like excitement in the beginning, but over time that dwindles and fades, and then people eventually look for other things. But you guys have maintained that in a medium that has its set of challenges given the digital sort of growth and so on. What would you say has been your main sort of, it's the relationship then?
So I don't
If the
want to
one
jinx
way to
anything.
retain it,
I don't
huh?
want to jinx anything, kal pata nahi kisi ka mind change ho jaye. But honestly, it's the relationships. These people are also people who understand what commitment is, right?
Right.
They believe in the commitment in a relationship as well as in the workplace.
Right.
Khalid Malik is a father of 3. He's found a comfortable spot where he's treated with respect, where he's celebrated. We believe in him. We know he's one of our major, celebrities, and we treat him like that. We hope at least we do.
Right.
And he's found a comfortable spot here. Sophie has to. I don't intervene in their shows. I don't tell them what to say and what to do. That's.
So you've given them a lot of autonomy.
I have.
You've given them a lot of.
We have as
Yeah.
as an organization. We allow them to do.
So it's the autonomy, it's the relationship, it's sort of the overall environment that you've created for them, a welcoming environment. But at the same time, you've also established sort of the boundaries of operation so that no one gets hurt.
Yes.
Yeah, in the process.
And also we're supportive, if they've had something happen in their lives,
Right.
you have to be supportive
Of
because they're
course.
also your friends.
Of course.
So all these 3, Dino, Khalid, Sophie, Arif Abrar, Salim Kareem, they're all friends of mine too.
Right.
So if I meet them socially, it's not as like, ye to mera host hai. It's
Right,
like, oh,
right.
that's my buddy, that's
Yeah.
my friend.
Yeah.
So, and they're family, essentially.
I think that's the word, is
Yeah,
families.
Munib Nawaz,
Yeah.
these are all people who are family.
Interesting.
Fasi Zaka used to be a part of us. He's, I know his ins and outs of his life.
Right. So you really have to integrate yourself as someone who manages a channel with all the key talent in your organization, and become a
I
daily
think
part
that's
of their
important.
lives.
I think every owner of a channel or anybody who runs a channel knows that and does that.
Right.
That's why, TV1 has managed to retain who it
Right.
has, or ARY has managed to retain the people that it has, because you have to have those relationships.
Correct. And you guys have done another great job with not just retaining talent, but you do extremely well with collaborations. And for some reason, you've managed to find yourself a part of most collaborations, most on ground activations that take place around the city. I think you and FM 89 compete a lot for those kinds of collabs for similar audiences. How do you find the time or the space to figure out what are the right collabs for you, and how have you managed to stay ahead of all the other radio channels that are out there in terms of collaborations?
So basically, we don't pick and choose a lot. We tend to give everybody a chance, but we have some repeat customers who are very happy with what we do for them. Our motto is make them feel like they have gotten what they asked for. So it can't be कि बस आपने एक post लगा दी, एक endorsement कर दिया, आपका काम खत्म. We want to make sure their event is a success. In some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't. There have been points when we've taken on too many events. There have been points when we've taken on just enough. Some of our favorite collaborations are with District 19, with Karachi Eats. We've worked with Napa. We've worked with Arts Council. We've worked with, Salt Arts at one point. I mean, we've had some amazing collaborations. And I think that, again, works on relationship.
Right.
That works on understanding that your customer is you have to provide a service to them. You're not
Right.
just doing it to put your name there. So, yeah. And one of the reasons we do collaborations is because we feel that our brand needs to be out there. It needs to be visible. Visibility is very important for my brand.
And how do these collabs, I mean, obviously you're targeting people at these on ground events. How have the collabs helped retain or add new listeners?
Well, I mean, they see that FM 91, it's not just about listenerships, also advertisers, right? So they see कि अच्छा FM 91 यहाँ भी है, FM 91 वहाँ भी है, okay. Chalo, at least, it's a known brand. I mean, if you look at FM 91, people now, it's taken time, but
Right.
people now do recognize the logo and do recognize the brand.
So you're almost saying as if the activations are for the brand side more than the listenership, because your brand managers, when they see that this brand is active everywhere, maybe I should place my ad here.
It's a bit of both. I mean, it's to remind the listeners कि हम हैं,
Right.
and it's to remind the brand managers कि हम हैं.
Right.
We're here, we're there, we're everywhere, or we try to be.
Interesting. And you talked about relationships earlier, and you've talked about how relationships are important. And what I find interesting is that your business is about family relationships.
Yes.
Right? It's you're a second generation entrepreneur. Your father and mother started the media business, and your three sisters in the business. Actively, the entire family is working the business together. Yeah. How does that work out on a day-to-day basis?
It doesn't always work out. I mean, working for your father is not easy. And anybody who's working for their father or their mother will tell you that.
Right.
I adore my parents, but I mean, there have been times when, we have obviously...
What's the biggest challenge? Do they still think you're that kid that they grew up playing with, even though all these years have passed and you've been doing this for 20 years?
Yes. No, they still think that.
They still think that.
On many occasions. She's a girl. That becomes one issue.
Okay, so that's a whole different, the gender part of it.
The gender part of it, she won't be able to handle this. That becomes an issue.
But your mom's in the business. She's running the entire production side of it.
She is, but she is very deeply embedded into that. And it's her passion.
But she doesn't feel the gender bias, or does she?
Of course she does.
She feels it too?
She's felt it many times.
No, I'm so sorry. If she feels it, but why would she pass it on to you? Doesn't she think
She doesn't do it to me. I don't work directly with her.
Okay, you don't work directly with her.
I chose not to.
Yeah.
Because there was lots of
Yeah.
So yeah, so I
So less headbutting with dad than mom.
Well, dad lets me do what I want.
Okay.
Dad says, okay, run that,
And you've passed that mindset on to your RJs then, in a sense.
Yeah. In a sense, yeah. And the team. I don't get involved in the day-to-day.
Right.
Because I don't need to. I go in, I look at the finances, I look at what's happening with HR, and make calls, to get money or to give money or to I look at the programming, but everything I don't get. I'll give them ideas and then I'll be like, okay, now you guys need to do this.
And you've learned this from your father?
I've learned this from my father. Might be laziness also.
Yeah.
But, might be the fact that I have a lot of other things going on.
Yeah.
Also having kids.
Yeah.
So one of the things that this job has allowed me to do is spend more time at home, be
Right.
around the kids. So that's a perk. And my team knows that because most of them don't necessarily have kids, a lot of younger ones, or if they do, they're older kids.
Right.
So, they know that, okay, Sarah will come in for 2 or 3 hours and she'll get everything done that's needed. She'll be
Right.
working from home. And, so yeah.
And how does it work working with sisters in the same business? Or do you
So
guys have separate silos for everything?
separate silos, but we do work together every now and then. Sahar is the CEO of Interflow
Okay. So she's looking
Communications.
after all of the advertising.
She is. She has a head for strategy and advertising.
Right.
And so she has recently become the CEO of Interflow, a very young one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and she's struggling, because obviously advertising is changing in such a big
Yep.
way. But she does advertising and summer works in television
Got it.
with my mom.
Okay. So she's on the TV production side.
Yes, she
okay.
is. So she's writing stuff, she's, coordinating stuff. So I'll message them or I'll get in touch with them when they need something or when I need to do something. So it works
Right.
like that. It's just easier when you have a sister there, right?
So you've got advertising, you've got TV, you've got radio,
Yes.
you've got TV news and you've got TV entertainment.
Yes, and then we have a regional channel called Vaseb.
And you've got a recent channel called Waseb.
Saraiki channel.
And you've got a team to support all of this.
We do.
How come your digital piece is missing? You could have easily had a digital agency. You could have easily had a digital, let's say.
So Interflow is supposed to kind of evolve into a digital agency. I think we basically missed that, kind of boat in a certain way. Now we're trying to catch up.
Why do you think you missed it? Like what was it that kept you busy or kept the family
TV
busy?
did.
TV kept the
is
family
it's,
busy.
It's you may know this. You have
I had
already
some
been in that
experience.
business. Yes, you have had some experience. You do know how tumultuous that
That is a very, very time-consuming business.
time-consuming that industry is.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, talent is hard to find.
Very hard to find.
Direction is hard to find. HR is hard to maintain. So
And that's the question I kept asking is why are we doing this?
yes,
You know,
yes.
TV to me at that time, and it was a difficult call, but I just felt that digital, I mean, yes, it's going to be an abrupt jump, but digital had a much longer runway.
Yeah,
than
so
TV.
we've been trying to kind of get that idea across.
Right. But TV offers something that digital doesn't. Clout.
It does, exactly. And
You
now
know?
I think the management is getting a little tired of the clout also.
Right.
Because, it's, for my father, when you have 3 daughters, and you're in a business that's just money consuming, time consuming.
Yeah.
When you're coming to an age where you want to relax, you start thinking, okay,
Why?
why am I doing this? So we're looking,
But there's ways to monetize clout also. There are other TV channels that do that.
yes, there are.
And they do that in a much more aggressive way. Your channel, TV One, has never had it, hasn't had that kind of approach.
No, we've never had that.
Why not take the other approach? It'll make life easier.
I don't think that's who we are.
Right.
Necessarily. Even with TV One, I think a kind of programming we did was always for the people, educate them, which is one of the reasons we didn't become the hums in the ARYs, because again, we never believed in ke औरत को पहले episode में, थोड़ा सा difficult situation में दिखाना. We never believed in
In
that.
fact,
We don't endorse that.
I remember I just moved back from the US and I think it was my first year. And I was flipping through channels and I saw this show called Band Khidkiyon Ke Piche.
That's my mother's
Right.
production.
And I literally, I was stunned. I was like, wow. I mean, they're portraying women as very empowered in this show, which was unlike all of the other content at that time.
And believe you me, people didn't necessarily understand that content.
Right.
Now, if you would launch that with chudels and
Yeah.
now people are like, oh wait, having an empowered woman is
Yeah.
nice. It's not bad. Why can't women be empowered?
Yeah.
This is after the digital world has evolved, right?
Correct.
Before that, when Band Khidkiyon Ke Piche aired, it was not well received because the marketers
Yeah.
couldn't understand कि भाई ये तो who's relating to this?
Yeah. Who
are
is
these
relating?
women?
Exactly.
Who are these progressive women?
But now it's all
Whereas-
Gen Z.
Exactly. But also, we have a lot of progressive women in our older, what's it called, older demographics.
Right.
I mean, like Benazir Bhutto was a very progressive
Absolutely.
woman. Sharmeen Bechnoy is a progressive woman. Nasreen Jalil is a progressive woman. Sherry Rahman. These are all older women. And this was
Right.
what Band Khirkiyon Ke Piche was about, progressive women. Theek hai, it was also about gossip and this and that. But those stories were taken from real life stories that my mom then pieced together. And she
Right.
wanted it to be like, a reality check into what's happening in the upper echelon. And but it was well received in some aspects, and some people were just like, but what is this? But
Right.
we want the, bichari
Traditional, the
ladki
Bichari
and
woman.
the sar dhaki hui aurat and the...
So why not convert TV1 into a channel for progressive women? You've done the content, you understand the content, you guys have been ahead of the curve, and the market is ready for it.
The market is not ready for it.
The market is
frankly
not ready.
speaking.
The advertiser is not ready, or the audience is not ready.
They're both not ready for it. The advertiser. Now, I think
But Chorel's came and it
Churels was
was,
on Z5.
but we still had viewership, and
We
a
had
lot of that came
viewership,
from
but
here.
yeah, but the marketer still wants traditional media because they're comfortable with that, right? It's safe. They know कि, I mean, even though Pemra has put a ban on कि हर सबका affair चल रहा हो, Pemra has said कि भाई
Right.
आप लोग क्या दिखा रहे हैं?
Right.
जैसे ये society में होता नहीं है. But they're still uncomfortable with this modern woman dialogue.
Right.
But it's slowly coming in. I think social media is bringing it forward. Now, we did a show about, I think it's a drama, Dil Na Umeed something. It did very well, and it had it was a very interesting topic also. And it did very well. It's been nominated in Lux for a story and this and that. But again, we didn't know if it would, and my mother worked with Kashyap Foundation to kind of produce it and stuff. So yes, it did very well. So we're seeing now that there are women who want to break the bondage and they want to come out and they want to see a progressive woman, but they
Right.
also want to be able to relate to their own kind of story. But they've seen so much of it.
Yeah.
So even channels that initially tried to do only the formula, as it's called,
Right.
even they're breaking from it. TV1 has been doing it for a while, but unfortunately, what we figured is that we were always ahead of the curve in these things, and we never were able to monetize it. Now might be the time, but we're in a position where we can't take risks.
Right.
It's so much competition.
There is a lot. And
In the
especially with
market.
digital content and YouTube
Yes.
channels monetizing and generating revenue for their content creators the way they are.
It's impossible to tie down a good actor.
It is, yeah.
It's impossible to tie down a good scriptwriter. You really have to. And then the people aren't necessarily ethical, right?
Yeah.
They'll take the money. They won't show up.
Yeah,
They'll,
of course.
they'll sign the contract. They'll
That's a
cancel
big problem
it,
for
won't
this
show up.
industry.
It's a big problem.
There's no ethics and there's no moral code guiding the
Shoot
industry.
date will be on.
Yeah.
I won't show up, for the shoot. And I find that to be, it's evolving, but that's happening a lot.
Yeah.
Like we shot this, my mom did a play, More Moharan,
Yeah.
which is about, it was actually about an environmentalist.
Okay.
And it's about, the Cholistan desert. And she talks about the environment. WWF helped us with it, which I don't think, which is the first play of its kind. But it was very hard to shoot.
Yeah, of
Because,
course.
actors wouldn't show up or set wouldn't
Cholistan is a
work out.
very difficult place to shoot in, and then to get people there and the equipment there and everything, the
And to get
infrastructure
people to
isn't
show
there.
up on the shoot was
Yeah.
hard, So it was, so it's challenging.
Interesting. And so when you're dealing with, these set of business challenges, you've got a family business you're working in, you're working in a line of business that, sort of is questioning its future in our country. Globally, I think it's found its place. Where do you turn to for ideas, for different business opinions? Like, how do you keep yourself invigorated?
We're currently in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
Because, all the businesses we're in are going through a major...
Oh, I meant like you personally. How do you personally keep your mind fresh? Because and then you've got your kids, So, I mean, are there organizations you join that,
So
give
I'm on the board of a couple of organizations,
Right.
and I think that's what keeps me going.
Okay. How does that give you a fresh perspective? Let's say, I think you mentioned also YPO.
Yeah.
How do these kinds of business organizations or even the charity organizations that you're a part of, how do they give you that fresh perspective?
So WWF is a fantastic organization. I have met some amazing people on the board, illustrious people on the board. Mr. Babar Ali, Syed Babar Ali is, our president. I mean, I think he's our president. No, he's not our president. Sorry, he's the founder of
One of the best
WWF
businessmen
in
in the
Pakistan.
country,
One of
yeah.
the best businessmen in the country, highly
And still
respected,
active at
still
his
active.
age.
It's an honor to be on that board. I've learned a lot. I'm part of the executive committee. I work with Mr. Nadeem Khalid, who's the president. I work with Hamad Naki, who's the director general. I've learned a lot about what's happening in Pakistan, in the world, in the space of the environment and endangered species. It's a passion. So it's very rewarding. Citizens Archive of Pakistan, which was founded by Sharmina Bed Chinoy. I'm a founding member. Again, another very rewarding organization to be a part of because, again, I'm really interested in culture, history, art, and we do work in those spaces. We have launched NHM, the National History Museum in Lahore, the first National Pakistan Patriotic Museum, modern museum of its kind,
Right.
in Greater Iqbal Park. It's been an amazing journey. The board is filled with like amazing people. Ziad Bashir from Gul Ahmed, like Ehsan Najmi, who's an
Right.
architect. Good friends and really smart people. So that gives you a learning curve. I do fundraising for them. I do help with the events. Now PDP, I'm on the advisory board. It's Mr. Amin Hashwani and then Omer I work with. And, they're working to include people with handicaps or differently abled people into the workforce and training them and educating them. So it's really rewarding to see what's going on over there. They're very passionate people.
Right.
Previously, if you have any kind of handicap and if you go to Nadra to get yourself registered, even it can take up to 6 months.
That's true. Yeah,
But thanks to now PDP, it takes 2 days.
they've done a great job.
They've done a great job.
In fact, we did a digital training workshop for people with disabilities, and we found that individuals who may be hearing or sight impaired,
Very dexterous.
yes, and they make great designers and content creators on on laptops or whatever.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
See, there you go. Because their senses
Exactly.
are heightened, right?
Their senses are heightened, yeah.
It's really rewarding to see that. And then YPO is thanks to my dad. It's Young Presidents Organization. It's great for networking. I've met some of my closest friends through that organization. I have learned a lot because there's a lot of learning in that organization. I'm on the board. I help with events and stuff, It's challenging, but it introduces you to a very large network of people all over the world.
And that's where you get a lot of ideas from.
You get a lot of ideas from them because you're exchanging ideas
Yeah.
with some of the smartest people in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And you're learning from some of the smartest people in the world.
Yep.
And what else is there? Then PBA, I'm sitting with some of the heads of media.
This is the Pakistan
industry.
Broadcasting Association.
Yes, I'm sitting. I'm there thanks to
Industry stalwarts, as I call them.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you have Shakil Masood Saab, Nazar Freen,
the movers and shakers of media.
Of the media.
Yep.
And you're sitting there and you're like in awe because you're like, wow, look at this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, these are all the extra things. And of course, my kids
Yeah.
are,
The kids always keep you humble.
of course,
And active.
and active.
So if you were to leave with one message, you mentioned the point around women entrepreneurship earlier and how that even to this day, you have to hear about it from your parents. If there was one message for women entrepreneurs, we had one last week also from Sehat Kahani, you've done a great job. What would be sort of your takeaway for anyone in their 20s looking to start up a business in Pakistan and is a women-led business?
I think there's a lot of potential for women-led businesses. I think Pakistan gives you a lot of opportunity that other places don't. We are very lucky to live in a very dysfunctional society in some aspects because you can do anything here.
Right.
Okay? You can launch a channel, you can open up a business. Now, it depends on how you work that business on whether it's going to be a success. It depends on who you collaborate with. It has taken me almost 20 years to make my radio station successful because, again, I feel like I was ahead of the curve in some ways and people didn't understand what I was trying to do.
Right.
Now they do, in the sense that I had always maintained that I will provide entertainment to everybody.
Right.
Because we have a mixed bag of people here from different parts of the city and I want to be able to talk to them all. And it's taken 20 years for that to register. But it has. I feel now kids are way sharper and way smarter than we were back in the day. I feel women are way sharper and way smarter than they are, and we shouldn't allow anything to hold us back. Because at the end of the day, it's just about conversation. How do you convert that person who doesn't believe in you into a believer? It happens by showing them that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
It happens by
True.
gently converting them to your
Absolutely.
side. My father is one of my biggest supporters, but also can be the most difficult person for me to work with, because at the end of the day, he's my father, so he's looking at me and like scrutinizing everything I
Right.
do,
Of
right?
course.
So there have been times when we've been at loggerheads with each other. But at the end of the day, now, after many years, he's finally saying, okay, you know what? Maybe you know a little bit.
Maybe you know.
Maybe you kind of
After
figured it
20
out.
years, we've discovered you know one thing.
One thing. Yeah. I mean, I think somebody had to tell him.
Yeah.
You know, like one or two people came to him and said, "Bhai, your daughters are fantastic."
Yeah.
And he was like, "What?"
Yeah. These ones.
That one?
That is good. And if you weren't doing this, and if you weren't in a family business of media, what would you be doing?
Architecture.
Architecture.
I actually went to RISD, Rhode Island
Right.
School of Design, which is an architecture known
Right.
for
One of the
architecture.
best in the world.
And I was actually at school with three very good architects, Sara
Right.
Najmi, Hasan Najmi, and Zaid Bilgrami.
Right.
And I would sit and I would look at their stuff and be like, wish I was doing that.
Yeah.
While I was carrying cameras around and mics around and being like, what am I doing? But at that point, I was supposed to come back and join advertising and
Right.
production and do all of that. But
Interesting.
as soon as I came back from the US, the industry was already evolving.
Right.
You know, that the agencies weren't necessarily doing the productions. Now production houses were popping up. It was changing.
The industry was evolving.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for the time. This was a fun chat. I got to learn a lot.
Thank
I
you for
do
having
believe
me.
that radio has a lot of potential. And I think that, contrary to popular belief here in this market, you're absolutely right. I think radio offers free entertainment, and we forget that we live in a third world country, and and there's 100 million people who don't have data in this country. So they do need a medium that they can communicate with and through and learn from. And I think the advertisers keep forgetting that. They get pulled by the digital sort of wave. Partly we're responsible for that as, part of that industry. But I think that radio has a lot of potential, and I wish you all the best in that space.
Thank you very much. So in this conversation, I keep hearing from everybody that radio has a lot of space. I believe in radio. I just need people to kind of, get up and support it.
Yeah.
Because all the radio fraternity has invested a lot of time and money and love into this medium. I feel it'll find its balance. Digital is important as long as we support
Correct.
each other. And that's it.
Well, I'm tuning into drive time on my way home today.
Thank you. You must.
Thank
Today
you.
is Thursday, yeah.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in this
Thank
week,
you.
and stay tuned to next week and subscribe to our channel. You click on the link below to subscribe. Take care till next week. Bye-bye.